Try now.
How about now? Zoom people. Hey.
Okay, good. All right, so let me get back.
I assume I can see.
You can continue now once I get the slides back up.
Just a little FYI here. So the Willow Beach Field Naturalists have been invited by the mayor over to participate in Great Lakes Coastal. So that's this Sunday. It's a pretty casual event. I think you just kind of show up at that time and kind of go from there. It's pretty open to show up and that time period and do some good. And I guess we can jump into the sightings then.
Microphone.
Or Zoom.
Try and make the Zoom people happier because this is their mic right here on the table in front of me. Okay. You couldn't see something last like 4 months. One of the most exciting things that's happened this fall, and it doesn't usually happen in the fall, is a wimble turned up on Bell Island at Presqu'île, and lots of people waded out Presqu'île. It was after the people were forbidden to go there, and took a picture of it. And the wimble used to be called Hudsonian curlew, which is what was the name of our logo. Yeah, that's why our newsletter is called the curlew, named after this bird. So many people saw this bird. People that wanted to wade into thigh-high water over to Presqu'île to see it. So anybody else? Anybody in the group see it? Roger, you did, I think. Richard here. Anybody else? Oh my goodness. They're much less common in the fall. They're usually they turn up about Victoria Day weekend in the spring, and they used to be in huge numbers at Willow Beach. Yeah? You can sometimes see them at Cobra Harbor here in the springtime, usually around 24th.
Yeah, the thing is sleepy. Sleepy. I'm saying not responsive. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
And Marina at her place has had many warblers. This is a black-throated blue warbler male. Many of you may have seen those different sorts of warblers in your backyard. Marina lives in the forest, so she gets a fairly good number of them. But Roger, you've seen magnolia warblers in our garden. Marula, big-breasted. So this is the time. This is intense time for warbler motion. If you're looking for any woods tomorrow morning, first light, you'll probably see some. They look much different. This is how they look in the fall. This is not how they look in the springtime. Many warblers change quite dramatically spring and fall. I remember the first time I saw a chestnut-sided warbler in the fall, I wondered what in the world people were talking about chestnut on it. It's much more chestnut in the spring. And thrushes. This is a Swainson's thrush. You can't tell because this picture doesn't show the back, but it has all the same olive color on the back. It used to be called olive-back thrush, and in fact, the French name is still Grive adosali. It still has that name. So, and they nest further north, heading to the tropics for the winter. So again, they turned up in our garden, Port Hope. So it might be in yours if you look. Margaret, did you have them in yours?
Yes.
Yes. That's just across the street here. And Chris, you had an outing for for raptors. Did you see broadwoods?
Only a couple on that day. I saw work today. Kind of missed the big Broadway fight. Yeah, we kind of the Raptors.
Broadwoods are in the middle of September. Renee, you had a couple of days where you had a bunch.
I had a few, but Suzanne had some big
Suzanne
groups.
Williams, who lives north of Cold Springs, also had quite a few in the middle of the pipeline. September. And bald eagle. There was a bald eagle seen on what outing, Roger?
Raptor.
The raptor. They had one at the Hazelburg outing as well. Sorry?
I had 12 today.
12 today over your house?
No, Skullthorpe.
Sorry?
Skullthorpe.
The Skullthorpe Marsh. Okay, that's in Port Hope. You want to go down there and stand beside the water treatment plant and look up at the sky? Yeah. Actually, it's a sewage treatment plant. That's it's a very good spot because the birds are coming in fairly low and they have to go higher if they go further west. And they take 5 years to get the full white head and tail. So they might be different varieties of plumage. And this one I put in on purpose because one of my neighbors hailed me down a couple of days ago and said, "Are there ravens this far south?" And I have to say yes, because I've been hearing them calling in our neighborhood. If anybody knows Port Hope, there's a water tower on Dorset Street West, and they often are sitting up on top of that water tower. And I can hear them from my house. Most people are familiar with ravens from their cottage or from canoeing trips in Algonquin Park and stuff like that. But they are nesting somewhere further south now. I think, Roger, you found the first nest in Northumberland County south of the Shield and somewhere in the mid-90s. They're not really common, but there was a pair nesting on a structure in a gravel pit on Cranberry Road in Port Hope, just north of 401 for several years. The place that they nested has been taken down, so they can't do that anymore. But I often see them around my family's farm at Welcome.
Yeah, there's several nests up around on the farm silos near the forest on the either side of the forest. They're nesting on the little platforms next to the ladder.
Okay, they did on my sister's silo, and that's just what's relevant.
Yeah.
So.
There was a pair of nesting farmhouse at West.
Oh yes, stupid me, I saw that nest. There's a little platform on the powerhouse at the Westville Open Sea property. And they've done it a couple of years, huh? Yeah. But they are in the area. You can mostly tell them by call because they have a really ugly sound. But if you see them flying, so you have to check your black birds. If you see them flying, they're bigger than a crow, probably a third bigger, and they fly flat. And don't flap very much. They do a lot more gliding than crows. And the tail is wedge shaped. This one's tail is pretty spread out, but if it was closed, it's still a wedge shape. But the crow doesn't have it. And the sparrows have arrived. White Georgian sparrows? Anybody have them in their garden?
Yep.
Yeah, lots of people. We've had a few in ours. So look for more of them. They're coming winter. Some of them will stay around all winter. Some of them go a little bit further south, but they mostly winter in the continental U.S. Yeah. A Lincoln sparrow. This is one that nests fairly far north. You saw one at Hazel, Doctor? You saw them in Candlewick Woods? Yeah. So they're around. They're skulky. They're really hard to identify. Sometimes you can see. And all kinds of other sparrows are moving around as well. And these guys, are just moving in. Michael Baker had one in his yard in August, which is incredibly early for them, but they'll hang around for the winter. There should be usually fairly big flocks in their backyard.
And that's it.
And that's all. Anybody else have anything else? Don, you had some butterflies this week.
Yes,
The monarchs?
still passing through. I tagged a couple today.
I had two in my garden this afternoon. And 2 days ago, we found a caterpillar. I'm not sure it was the last instar, but yeah. Anybody have anything else? I don't know if you noticed, but in the last curlew, there were a lot more sightings that weren't birds.
Yes, I had an eastern newt this week.
An eastern newt.
A newt.
Okay.
It wasn't alive.
Oh,
I found it on the road,
okay.
but it's this little salamander type creature that's red and reddish orange in color. And poor thing was deceased.
Probably.
Right, you know, how about our experience with the rabbit.
Well, maybe you can tell.
We were at Colburn Lagoons and bird watching and saw some motion up ahead on the path, and then disappeared. And then rabbit popped out of the grass and came running towards us. And shortly after, a weasel popped out of the grass chasing the rabbit, and the rabbit just came right back, ran right between the two of us. The weasel sort of looked at us and then kept going right by us as well. We turned around, and then at that point, we got our cameras, our phones, and started videoing as the rabbit went into the grass. Weasel went after it, came back and came back towards us, popping like this, and then looked at us, then went around us, then into the grass, came out of the grass, stood up, looked at us, and off went. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I posted the video that we did manage to shoot. I posted it on the Facebook page. So we were so shocked at first that we forgot to video at first because we were so surprised at this weasel running right at us. But we finally got our wits together and took some video. So.
Anybody else have anything? Yeah.
A birder named Barbara O'Neill reports 2 horned larks at Owen Point yesterday.
Nice.
2 horned larks at Owen Point yesterday. So they're settling in for the winter, probably. You'll see them in snowy fields in the winter time. Catherine, what's in your yard?
I have been watching 3 black swallowtail caterpillars.
3 black swallowtail caterpillars. That's it. That's it. Well, anybody else have anything? Tell us about. Because we're interested in things other than birds as well.
Lots of little fungus in forest trails right now.
Starting, yeah.
Fungus in the forest trails. I'll have to dig out my my George Barron book to see what they are. Professor Barron, with his retirement project, wrote a book, The Macrofungi of Eastern North America. He spent most of his entire career in a darkened room, staring through a binocular at the University of Guelph. It's a very good book, and it was out of print for a little while, but it's back in again. If you're interested in fungi.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, what magnificent weather we're having. And it's been a nice stretch, and we've got some nice rain, so they'll actually maybe have some
Fungi.
fungus to look at in the woods at some point. But we have been having some outings, some while through the past month. We've had 4 outings. On August 30th, we had a warbler outing at Marina's home and in the woods. We had 21 participants, a really nice crowd, magnificent. It started cool, about 9 degrees, and then as it warmed up, we ended up with 35 species of birds. 12 of those were warbler species, 4 woodpecker species, coopers and broadwing hawks, a great blue heron, flyover, purple finch, and the hummingbirds entertained us the whole time. It's amazing. On September the 7th, we had the warbler and sparrow migration day at Hazel Bird. And once again, another spectacular boarding, sunshine, the 4-mile or 4-kilometer loop following Roger around the property. And it was the bird that stole the show or stole the day, I think, was the all-sided flycatcher. And then later on the morning, walked a bald eagle. On September the 10th, Catherine Hyman led a fish outing along the Ganaraska River, and I was there for that particular event, but I understand it's pretty fishy. And we had 10 participants out there looking at those scaly critters. On September 14th, we had a shorebird outing led by Roger to Presqu'île, and there were a few more shorebirds than there were last year, but not a lot, but there were a lot of warblers, and many Wilson's warblers, which would be a real treat. I don't think I've seen Wilson's warbler in years. So that was great. And coming up, well, I guess I've got to change pages.
Yeah.
Coming up tomorrow, no, not tomorrow.
Next week.
That's right. I'm a weekend sleep. Next week. Next Saturday, there's a nature walk at Marion West Nature Reserve, which is just west of Campbellford, and that'll be led by Chelsea, Mark Antoni. And then on Sunday afternoon, I'll be leading an urban tree walk for Hope, and that'll be along the Ganaraska, going north from Barrett Street. And so I'm looking forward to a good outing. And on the 21st of October, we'll have an astronomy outing on the boardwalk, assuming that we have a nice clear night. And that'll be led by Cook. On the 25th of October, we'll have a geomorphic tour. That'll be led by Matt here, and that'll be a tour of geological features of Northumberland County. In November, I will have a waterfowl outing. It's decided at this point. Depends on weather and birds coming through. So that's all I've got.
Oh, the fungi outing, you might want to mention.
Oh, fungi.
Yeah.
Once again, that's weather dependent, and that'll be on the fly. That's on the ground. That'll be on the fly. Did I miss anything?
No.
Oh, yes, right. Okay. Northumberland Land Trust outings, which all our members are welcome to attend as well. Tomorrow, 27th,
Yes. Yep.
At 9 a.m. the Jack and Ulster Nature Reserve hike. Then on the 18th of October at the Wilhelmina Woods Nature Reserve, and that'll be hiked fall color, although we might be past at that point. November the 9th, the Wilkinson Nature Reserve walk, and in December, I think we decided clear nature reserve north of 22. Okay.
Info is on the Northumberland Land Trust website.
Yeah, not far. Percent. Okay. Now,
Richard. So let's get into our main event. So today, speaking, we have Frank Dempsey. He's been an amateur astronomer since being a little boy. a retired meteorologist, and his education included a Bachelor in Science in Chemistry and Physics and a Master's in Science in Astronomy. He's a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada at the Toronto Centre, the Durham Region Astronomical Association, and the North York Astronomical Association, and Pickering Naturalists, where he's currently trip. He uses numerous telescopes, both commercially made and home built, and binoculars for visually observing the night sky on a clear night. Today he's going to give us sort of an overview of that kind of thing and what we can expect to see up there. So, thank you so much. Want to come up and give us your presentation?
Here with one important thing is my printer. Fills a big water. It may show up better if you turn the lights off.
Yeah. Or you or laptop. It's up to you.
I can just do it.
All right.
Well, it's an electronic gadget, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, main point is, glad to see you all here and glad to share astronomy with anybody who will listen. And so, glad to have been invited by Don. And so, start off with a really nice picture here, which you can't see because it's pretty bright, of course, but that's okay. No problem. This point was starry sky, so I thought it's a good way to start off the presentation. I'm in favor of promoting starry sky. So, you might have heard Matt mention I'm training in chemistry and other stuff. I'm not here to talk about chemistry or meteorology. I'd love to have any questions, but I can get pretty distracted with that. I'm preferring to talk here about starry skies and what you can see as a naturalist. So that's why I started off with this little picture from of a summer sky. Anyway, next picture, please. I forget. I'm trying to remember what I put in, but if you can advance,
Yeah,
if you can.
I will just.
I think it was a list of topics. So I strained to decide what to put in here. There's a lot of topics to put in, so I had to decide to leave some things out and try to include some things that you as naturalists, or all of us as naturalists, could find interesting. Okay, so I picked a bunch of topics and decided how do I arrange these? I don't know. So go to the next slide, please. Started to start off with sunset and going to the evening sky and a tour of the September night sky. So I just mentioned sunset because you as naturalists can see a lot of information in sunset. You can see the condition of the sky and clouds, haze, smoke. Sometimes it turns the sun pink. It gives us some impression of what you'll see with the and with the oncoming darkness of the night sky. So it may or may not be dark, it may be bright, it may be hazy, or cloudy, but every sunset is interesting. And the other detail I wanted to point out, I'll refer to a little bit. Didn't want to get into too much or any mathematics or orbital details, but you'll see the sunset has a different position on the horizon. So you see in the summertime, it's way up in the northwest, and around the equinox, around now, it's directly in the west, and around the midwinter, mid-December, its sunset is way down in the southwest. So you'll see it cycle back and forth, and similarly with the sunrise. So a lot of interesting things you can see with the sunset. Anyway, not to get too distracted on that. Next slide, please. So I wanted to do a quick sort of night sky tour with a few pictures of what you can see in the night sky. Okay, so the reason I put that picture again is because I think it's a nice picture. It's actually a different one from what I started off with, but I thought I took what I thought was a really nice picture of the summer Milky Way from one of the dark sky spots I go to in Manitoulin Island. That's the one on the left. So I thought I took a really nice picture I took. But I noticed when I compare it with Stellarium software, image of the same situation on the right hand side, same constellation Sagittarius. They do a sort of artwork manipulation that makes the Milky Way look far more spectacular, and stars pop out as images. So it's not at all like a photograph or even reality, but it's a very good picture for artwork. So I chose Stellarium for all these sky scenes I'm going to be showing you next, because Stellarium is a nice artwork package that does a better job than photographs that I possibly take. Okay, so next picture, please. I'll show you what I mean right here. Just wanted to show you summer triangle. So here they have a stars shining out in the Milky Way vast more vividly than it actually appears by eye. But that's fine because you see right in the middle, you see a triangle. So you see maybe you have a pointer here.
Yep, I do.
May not be much good for the Zoom watchers, but that's fine.
At least that.
I'll try not to use it very often, but Bright Star Vega, this summer triangle group is right overhead here. So you'll see the Bright Star Vega and Bright Star Deneb and Bright Star Altair and Aquila. So constellation of Aquila is here, Northern Cross is right here, and little Lyra-shaped constellation called Lyra is right here. There's a lot of interesting stuff in science going on here, and I wouldn't want to get too distracted. Just to point out the Deneb is a really darn strange star. It's huge, it's extremely luminous, it's about 25,000 times the size of the sun. And all of these stars in the picture in the sky have their own stories. They're all really interesting. But I'll try not to get too distracted on any particular thing. Have a lot of slides. Next slide, please. So I just want to pick out a few major constellations that you might find looking in the summer sky, late summer, early autumn sky right now. And I mentioned already the southern Milky Way, and if you recognize this constellation Sagittarius, it was in the last couple of slides I showed you, in the southern sky right there. And the Milky Way is most vivid in the constellation Sagittarius, just because it's the center of our galaxy in that direction. And here's the constellation Aquila, and constellation here is Bright Star Vega. They're part of the summer triangle. That's just an ongoing bit of a tour. So next slide, please. The Pegasus Andromeda area is worthwhile to look at. I'll point out again a few more times, and a bit later on, point out a few things. Pegasus is rising in the east, so a big square. So even the indigenous groups saw this constellation. But the Greeks labeled it as flying horse Pegasus. So that's fine. But the main point is big square of relatively bright stars, and the Andromeda region is right here, and I'll point out another galaxy here. And I will also be pointing out in other slides, although this one's a pretty good picture myself. Cassiopeia region, Perseus region. Right about now, this evening, they're pretty low in the northeast, so I'll highlight them more a bit later on. So next slide, please. So I'll repeat again the Cassiopeia and Perseus region, just to highlight them a bit more here in the center. It's actually stellarium set up for Coburg, and tonight, approximately 10:30 p.m., a few hours from now, start, and these guys are rising. So it's an attempt to show you what you might see in the next week or so during clear evenings. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I just wanted to show you those as a quick tour, but I want to show you a lot of other things that slide through the night sky, and people call them wanderers in past centuries, and good reason, because planets and the moon and minor planets, these are all things that you may see as naturalists, or you could look for if you're really curious and want to see them. You can see them with binoculars. And I'm straying, and I'm keeping from talking about anything that you need a big telescope for, but anything you can see with binoculars, you might decide that's really interesting, you want to go look. So that's what I've restricted the whole presentation to. Okay, that's just a brief introduction. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'll run through the planets. So Mercury is really hard to see. You'll have a really hard time seeing it unless you look really carefully. And so this picture is for, I think it was December, is the upcoming, December 4th, around 6 a.m., about an hour before sunrise on this particular date. So you'll see it right now in the next few weeks. Mercury is appearing in the sky, but it's even lower than the horizon that appears here. So it's really lousy, really a waste of your time to try to find Mercury, except when it has reasonably good apparitions. And here's the next upcoming one in December, where it's really not very good at all, but I'll be looking for it. It's not very high above the eastern horizon. The sky starts to brighten. It's not difficult to see Mercury at the best of times. So, okay, next slide, please. And a few details. What I tried to do is show you a star map of where you might find this particular planet in order from Mercury through Neptune. And a few details that might make it interesting. So this has been visited by a few spacecrafts. I've taken some pictures of it, called Messenger and Bepi Colombo. So the distance from the sun, number of kilometers doesn't matter a huge amount. It's 0.4 astronomical unit. Astronomical unit is the distance from the sun to the Earth. So you don't need to know, or if you want to know, it's around 150 million kilometers. But if I just gave you a distance of this 40% of that distance to the Earth, and that gives you some idea of how close it is. And it's also, a fraction of the Earth's diameter, and it orbits in 88 days. So every few months, it recycles from the western sky to the eastern sky. But it's really hard to see, so I don't want to waste too much of the time going on this too much. So next slide, please. It should a bit more interesting, and it's a bigger diameter. The main thing about Venus, although I picked out some colorful pictures here, I thought instead of making a slide full of text, I'll put on some colorful pictures, even if it's meaningless. It's meaningless because when you look at Venus and your binoculars or a small telescope, it's very brilliant white. That's why it's so bright in the sky. It's the brightest object we'll see in the sky after the sun. It's really spectacular. Twilight is deep blue. Whiteness of Venus is really beautiful, pretty sight. So I want you all to look for it. And right now it's easy to see in the morning, and it's getting closer to the sun, but eventually it will become an evening star, and that'll take another year or so. But it's also been visited by spacecraft. The point here is that it's been mapped carefully, and it's got some really interesting developments. It's not a dead planet at all. It's scorchingly hot. It's extremely hot. It's got a very thick, heavy atmosphere of sulfuric acid. Its pressure at the surface is 92 atmospheres of Earth. So Earth's atmospheric pressure that we have right here right now is 92 times that pressure of the surface of Venus. So it's a really interesting planet just by having the so-called runaway greenhouse effect, where all that heavy gas in the atmosphere is contributing to the greenhouse effect, causing really dark hot. Despite that, one interesting detail about Venus is that some scientists are excited about the possibility of life on Venus. So people laughed off the idea years and decades ago when the first spacecraft started to map the surface of Venus, saying possible for life to be there. However, at a certain height in the atmosphere, pressure is less tense and the temperature is sort of reasonable where life could possibly exist. And some people think they may have detected some molecules that may be related to life, so possibly microbe activity. So it's an interesting planet for that reason. And in fact, there were two NASA spacecraft intended to go there. Can't remember the names offhand. Dempsey was one, another one. If anyone wants to help me, I'll show it. But there were two spacecraft intended to go on and map these details in Venus' atmosphere because of the possibility of life. But it's irrelevant now because they've been canceled by the less than optimum situation in U.S. funding science. Don't want to talk about bigger things too much. So, next slide, please. So, planet Earth, totally amazing planet, I really think, and as you would agree as naturalists, that it's a totally amazing place to have. And the image on the left shows a blue ocean, shows dry deserts, and everything in between. And so, phenomenal amount of geology going on on our planet. Amazing history over the past millions of years, where all sorts of geological processes contribute to chemistry of the soil and the air, and photosynthesis by itself is a totally amazing process. It's absolutely magical, in my opinion. I think when you look at things from a chemistry point of view, things get more and more amazing. And things like photosynthesis that causes plants to take solar energy, convert it into mass that can be used by other growing creatures. Totally amazing because it shouldn't happen by chemistry and thermodynamics and things. It's really forbidden, but life has found a way to get around all the complications and really flourish on planet Earth. So I mentioned all that because it's interesting on some other objects I'll get to in a few minutes. So next, yeah, I didn't want to get into too many details. However, you probably are aware that we have seasons because of the Earth being tilted on its axis. So its rotation axis is tilted relative to the plane of its orbit. So we have a season in the year when the sun is shining most intensely on the northern hemisphere, that's summer, and then because of the tilt, we're entering the season in a few months where we have minimum amount of sunshine shining onto the northern hemisphere. It's pretty cool because of the actual tilt. So I didn't want to get into too many details, but I encourage you to look into it more if you want. I'd be glad to talk about it for the next half hour or so next picture, please. The moon is totally interesting too, and a huge amount of interesting geology there, and totally amazing processes going on. And it's the most interesting fact right now is that the south poles of the moon are suspected to have, since those south pole craters are considered to have hiding spots where water could exist. So various companies are trying to land their probes on the moon, some successfully, some not, to start to mine the water and oxygen here, because water may not have evaporated from the permanently shallow regions of pole. So anyway, a lot of interesting details there, but I want to move on. So next, please, probably Mars. Another totally interesting place, not to get too distracted on. There's a huge volcano on it. There's a huge canyon on it. It's probably the most interesting because there are two rovers on it right now that are investigating some really interesting chemistry, and it's now widely known that water exists on Earth, whereas I remember maybe 10, maybe 20 years ago, it was speculation that anybody even guessed that there might have been water on Mars in the past, and now it's been thoroughly accepted that water carved a lot of channels, river valleys, and so on, and existed for a brief period of time. Not enough to cause a lot of waterborne rocks that we would call fluorescent clays and so on, but rocks that we see on Earth that resulted from water being in contact with rocks for a long time didn't really happen on Mars. So we know it's a relatively short geological time period when there was water. Anyway, a lot of amazing details going on there. Two weird moons that shouldn't exist. So I think we'll just move on to the next one, please. Probably Jupiter. I didn't put in a chart showing you how to find Mars because it's very close to the sun in the western sky right now. Basically, you can't see it unless you look really hard going to the west. You can see it, but it's not bright. It's at the fainter end of its range, and it's really aggravating, frustrating waste of your time to look. So, I'm bothering to point out where Mars is. Jupiter, totally amazing body by itself. 11 times the Earth's diameter, much heavier. One interesting aspect of it is four so-called Galileans. So if you were to look at Jupiter tomorrow morning with your binoculars, you would see these four Galilean moons. And, Ganymede, Callisto, Io, and Europa. They were discovered by Galileo. So known for a long time. Also, another interesting aspect is so-called Great Red Spot. Now, this is an interesting photograph because I think I have some sketches I put in later showing that last year I looked at it and I thought, wow, it's really disappearing. Some days I looked at it to see what's happening with Jupiter. Basically, every night I get home from, sometimes I'm out of band practice or other things to get home late. I think I'm tired. Anybody playing any bands? Sure? Well, I think concert bands are great. But anyways, so I get home from band practice, I'm pretty on late, but sometimes I pull over the telescope and the sky is clear. But while Jupiter's up, then I can't even see the Great Red Spot anymore. It's really fading away. So this is an enhanced or old picture where it was much more intense. It was also known as Galileo's time 400 years ago, and it's known to have been diminished in size, so half the size that it was hundreds of years ago. But this is an ongoing storm in the clouds of Jupiter. So there's a lot of amazing stuff here. If you look at closely at, a meteorologist can get quite distracted from wow, these clouds full, and this is all ammonia and methane too in the atmosphere. Totally amazing stuff going on. It's so amazing. One of these moons called Europa is so amazing. It's well accepted that it has an ocean of liquid water. So it's considered to be a possible life source. That's the reason why NASA got this spacecraft on the way called Europa Clipper on the way towards launch last October on the way to Europa. It'll take about 5 years to get there. But it's spacecraft dedicated to investigating Europa for possible life. So it's a really amazing set of satellites that are many more than before. That's a lot of satellites and there's tiny ones. But anyway, next picture, please. I think it's a star map showing. Yeah, it's a morning object. And so if you were to get up early in the morning, easy now. And, sunrise is getting later and later. It's about 70 m now. And, I think this morning I saw the sun breaking above the horizon around 10 minutes after 7. But an hour before that, you can easily see Venus and Jupiter. And so Jupiter is pretty bright. It's fairly high in the sky by about an hour before sunrise. And it's pretty bright. So really easy to pick out. You don't need to know that it's in the stars in Gemini, but these two stars, Castor and Pollux, are nearby. They're pretty bright, so it's a good marker. Anyway, next image, please. It should be Saturn. Another totally amazing body in our solar system you can see with your eyes. You can point binoculars at it. We wouldn't really see the rings unless you have a small spotting scope that gives some good information. But it makes a nice picture and it's worth talking about. So a lot of interesting stuff. I guess one little detail to point out about it is the only planet that's its density is less than water, so that you put it into an Earth ocean, water big enough, it would float. And Saturn is only planet. The other have average densities that are greater than water, so Saturn would float. So I mentioned many of the moons. One of them is Enceladus, pretty far away from the sun. It's not getting much radiation from the sun, but maybe getting radiation from tidal heating. That is to say, tidal effects on orbiting Saturn. But whatever its energy sources are to keep it relatively warm, it's another satellite besides Europa that is known to have water, and it's actually covered by a thick layer of freshly fallen snow. And so it's another really amazing spot that may possibly harbor life if some form of life could exist here. So I just wanted to mention that's one of the really interesting details about Saturn. So next slide, please. Probably shows a picture of the evening sky right now. If you were to walk out tonight, you'll see Saturn in the east. Look up, see this stellarium depiction east here, southeast here, and look up southeast. There's no really bright stars. And so Saturn really sticks out. It's got a white, yellowish color. As you saw in the previous picture, it was a good depiction of its color due to the methane and ammonia gases in its atmosphere. But it's a nice yellow color, and it's below the stars of Pegasus, which is much fainter. So really easy to pick out Saturn or the period. Okay, next picture. I hesitated to put in Uranus and Neptune because are they relevant to naturalists? Maybe, because if you really want to look for it, you can point binoculars at it, you'll find it. Yes, and you may also hear some rumors that is naked eye visibility. That is to say, right now it's bright enough to see with the naked eye. I don't know. So I know naturalists thought there's a lot of let's say gray hair and so on. I know my eyes will pass away and see that. Maybe when I was 15 years old, I might have picked it up when it's this bright, but it's not bright enough to be seen with the end of your eyes. So a few of you may possibly pick it out if you really try to see it. Yes, but with binoculars, for sure, if you really want to find it. So some really interesting details about it. Really strong winds in its atmosphere. It's got some rings around it. It's got really amazing weather. It's got methane. It's a nice blue color when you look at it in a large enough telescope. Anyway, a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Next slide, please. I didn't bother putting a star chart to really find Saturn. If you wanted, you can find it. Neptune, another really amazing body with interesting weather and spots on it. You can maybe pick out a spot on, I think they call it the Great Dark Spot on Neptune. Jupiter has a great red spot, and Neptune's spot has been named the Great Dark Spot. Anyway, it doesn't have really distinct strong rings. They're called arcs rather than rings, so parts of rings. And so this is a really interesting picture from JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, infrared, showing some of the moons and some of the arcs. So it's a neat little picture. Otherwise, a lot of interesting details behind the discovery of it and so on. But I'll just leave it for now and say that's a quick tour of the planets. And next picture, please. So there are a lot of other things besides the bright planets that you might decide to look at if you're really curious as naturalists. Point your binoculars at some things. So I mentioned Vesta and Sirius, they're pretty bright. This picture on the right is Pluto. I guarantee you, you're not going to see it in any binoculars. You need a fairly hefty telescope to see it. But I just wanted to mention that these and they have all ball shape. Some are round, some are rocks, and so on. But I just wanted to mention them. I think I mentioned a couple more. Next picture, please. Okay, here's why it might be important. To at least be aware of it. In case you can't read it, uh, one guy says, I was struck by lightning twice as well. And they're both pulverized. But this could happen at any time, right? Including right now. So it's really worthwhile to be aware of these rocks that it could be, a few kilometers in size that could cause a bad hair day. I don't know if any of you remember the event about 10 years ago, I think it's 2013, Chelyabinsk, Russia. Anybody remember that? Yeah, so it's a pretty memorable event. So it's an important point that we can't ignore all these big rocks. And the worst thing about it is there's a lot of observatories set up to look for these, but they can't look close to the sun. So and that's where most of them are hidden. So they can find them when they're in the midnight skies. They'll find small rocks. They can pick them out and get enough data observations to put orbits on them. But the ones that are close to the sun cannot be observed. Those are at risk. As I said, it might cause a bad hair day. So I don't want to say too much about anything negative here. So let's just move on. So Milky Way is really nice. So I showed you this picture earlier that's still area, but it's nicer, prettier, more presentable picture than any of my photographs. But it is worthwhile to look at it. Milky Way is a really nice thing to see in the sky. Next picture, please. In the category of other lights in the sky, I wanted to mention these things here. So let's go on to the next one. Probably starts off with comets. No, it starts off with meteors. Okay, so you've probably seen meteors often, and a bit tricky to get a good photograph of them. But notice that both of these have colorful pictures. So when you see the brightest meteors, you may see green, you may see red, you may see transition that you see in the picture. They're amazing pictures that capture the changed color due to metals and these things. And the typical meteor is size of a grain of sand moving around space and hits the Earth's atmosphere, disintegrates in a flash of light. And the metals and intelligence color. Didn't want to mention too much about it. I did notice on your slide of announcements that October 21st we have astronomy outing sort of thing. It's worthwhile to mention that that night, October 21st, is one of the best meteor showers this year. That's called the Orion. So commonly people talk about best meteor showers in Perseids and Geminids. Perseids in August and Geminids in December. But it really requires no moonlight in the sky. So coming up around the 20th of October, moon will be out of the way, have no moonlight. It's still a reasonable temperature to be out at night, standing around for a couple of hours. It's not like it is in December with the Gemini shower. So I think if you are interested at all in seeing meteors, take advantage of the upcoming Orion and meteor shower on October 20th, 21st, in a few weeks, to look for meteors. They are meteors left over from Comet Halley's comet. Anybody remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was the year 1907. Anyway, left behind the cloud of debris from its tail, which the Earth intersects. Anyway, that's meteors. Next picture, please. Okay, comets. Occasionally we have some nice ones. Lower left one, Comet Del Blanc. Anybody remember that? Yes. So it's pretty memorable. I think the year was 1997 probably. So it's just interesting to see when they come around. And I think I put in a slide for Comet Lemon. So next slide, please. Yeah, Comet Lemon. So watch for any news about this because here's a chart from Sky and Telescope magazine showing the chart for the next few weeks. So here we are, right about here, end of September, getting into October, right about here. So we're at full moon here. So we see it emerging from the morning sky. It's pretty to get brighter. And so brighter, it may become as bright as naked eye visibility, what we might call approximately fifth magnitude stars. But the point is that you would point your binoculars at it and see it easily. So the point is, it's about mid-October onward, bright moonlight moves out of the way. full moon about here around 6th October approximately. And a couple of weeks later, it settled away, and moonlight is diminishing, and that's when you might want to look for keep tuned to news about comet Planet Case. It's predicted to be bright enough. You see it just below the Big Dipper or some major constellations. So it's in the northern sky. It's not way down on the southern horizon. Comets typically are. It could be a nice comet. So keep tuned to any news about that. Okay, next picture, please. Aurora happens from time to time. Anybody seen Aurora? Yep. Raise your hands. Happens from time to time, so just nice to see. Sometimes it's pretty colorful. Sometimes you just see a glow in the sky, as you see in the upper left picture. A glow developing. What the heck's that? Like Aurora. Anyway, next picture, please. Zodiacal light. So it's a bit harder to see, but you may hear about it. It is an aerosol effect. To see, it's pretty hard to photograph. So my friend Malcolm Park took this picture from Eastern Ontario. It's actually a very good picture. It actually is sort of realistic what it looks like. And around this time of year, right about now, is the time to see it in the morning sky. It's just a big triangular glow above the eastern horizon here. It seemed like Venus there. This is taken about 5 years ago. But anyway, it just it's time to see it is before morning twilight, and sometimes it's pretty obvious as you can see. So it's just worthwhile to be aware of it in case you want to look for it. September and October mornings are the time for it in the morning sky, and clear sky. What causes it? Zodiac light is caused by a cloud of dust and debris along the zodiac, which is path of the planets and the sun across the sky. So there's a line called the ecliptic and band of constellations called the zodiac, and this just means that a cloud of dust spread out along the zodiac or line across the sky where the planets move, and it's considered to be mostly ground up dust from asteroids. So most asteroids exist between the orbits of Mars. So especially around Jupiter, there's quite a big cloud of asteroids, and so it's considered to be a lot of dust. A few other sources are some particular sources from Mars, shown a few years ago. Somebody wrote a paper showing that certain component of the zodiac light comes from dust ejected from Mars. That is to say, every time meteorite blasts into the planet and ejects a cloud of dust, that dust becomes spread out along the orbit, which we see reflected sunlight. So it's a cloud of dust, it's reflected sunlight, forward scattering of sunlight, but it's in just the right position, which it is in the morning sky just before twilight. Well, it exists all the time, but morning twilight obliterates. When you see it before twilight begins, you know you're seeing the zodiac light. So it's scattering of sunlight by that cloud of dust on the zodiac. Okay, Texas. So time for a bit of water. Anybody seen an eclipse?
Yes.
Good, pretty good. How many have seen a solar eclipse? Bunch of hands. Good. Glad to hear that. How many have seen a lunar eclipse? Good. Many hands. I'm glad. So I don't need to talk with you. Just it's worthwhile to see whether it's a total eclipse or a partial eclipse. Pretty interesting. So let's move on to the next one, please. I put in a diagram. You may be familiar with what causes an eclipse. I thought I should at least mention that the eclipse is caused when the moon or sun gets in the way. So the moon, the earth, and the sun are in alignment. So you see on the outer circle, it represents the path of Earth around the sun, and in turn the moon is around the earth, and occasionally get aligned. And other conditions are just right to be an eclipse because the apparent size of the moon and the sun are approximately similar. The same, so one can together. Moon gets in front of the sun, so we solar eclipse. And so the moon's orbit is inclined to its orbital plane by quite a bit. So pretty often that lineup occurs. It's too high or too low, and you don't get an eclipse. But when things are just right, in just the right position, right lineup, we can get an eclipse approximately every 6 months. but didn't want to get too distracted. It's just worthwhile to look into more if you want to. It's just worthwhile to at least mention some little details. Okay, next picture, please. Whatever instrument you have, you might decide to go on, be amazed enough to go and look at some of the planets or asteroids or features I'm pointing out. So if you have a spotting scope or even an astronomical telescope, or whatever size binoculars you have, you just might decide to go ahead and use them. So next picture, please. I think I put a list of stuff I wanted you to go and look for. But it's worthwhile to point out this program. Royal Astronomical Society of Canada has a program called Explore the Universe. It's a very good list of things that you can see just with binoculars. So let me read the last line. One of the special features of the program is that it can be completed entirely using binoculars with any eye. So it's a whole list of things that are pretty good introduction to astronomy, things you can see. You might find interesting just as natural. So it's free download from the RASC website. It costs nothing to download. Anyway, next piece. I think I had another example of a list of objects you might decide to get interested to look at. That's double stars. So I just mentioned double stars is one of the many programs you could get interested in for using your binoculars for looking at the sky. So in this case, astronomically, they have gained free downloadable lists of objects you can look at because they promote observing. So they promote observing with telescopes, with binoculars, with the naked eye. So this is one example of a list of objects you could download free from the website if you're interested. Okay, next picture, please. So I set up a little list of things I want you to go and look for. Here. So I mentioned Venus. I think I put in a picture. I did just another star map of where it is. So it's in the morning sky before sunrise, and you see it right in the east. Probably a picture. Probably the still area picture for tomorrow morning is. So anyway, you point binoculars at it right now. It's not really interesting. You see a white dot. But other times when it's closer to the sun, you see a very thin, large crescent. That's a really nice thing to follow the phases as it changes from thin crescent to full phase, just like the moon does. So it's fun to watch that way. Okay, next picture, please. Pleiades or Seven Sisters, you see them in the upper right. You see the constellation Taurus in the lower left. It's also a really nice binocular sight. So you automatically look for it's rising in the east, up in the autumn and winter sky. Around November, December, it's nearly overhead. So it's just worthwhile to point out. I think I have a better picture. Next picture, please. Yeah, more magnified view. Again, it's a still area picture. It's nice artwork. It's a really good depiction of making it look much prettier than photograph would. So it's a nice picture of how it starts to appear with glittering bright stars. It's really nice to see. Okay, next picture, please. The Perseus constellation. So I showed this earlier, but the arrow points to a particular region that's called the double cluster in Perseus. It's a double star cluster. But the main point here, I think, overall, is that if you point binoculars anywhere around the area between Perseus and Cassiopeia, it's rich in stars and star clusters. It's a really beautiful sight to see in any size binocular. Next picture, please. So here's a magnified view showing star clusters, so-called open star clusters. It's just a really nice view. Any sort of optical aid instrument you might want to point at. Next picture, please. Andromeda Galaxy. Yeah, so I pointed out Pegasus and a few stars coming this way from that called Andromeda, and a little smudge there is Andromeda Galaxy. So next picture, please. Shows a more magnified view, and it's a bit more spectacular than what we see in binoculars, but at least gives you some idea of why you should point your binoculars at it. It's worthwhile because it's farthest thing we can see with our eyes. It is visible by eye, dark sky, just as binocular or telescope view is even more magnified, but being 2.5 million light years away means that light we're seeing part of 2.5 million years ago. That's really amazing to see to look that far back in time. It's really amazing. It's a short period in the scale of the Earth's history. It's a really interesting thing to look at when to see the farthest thing to see with our eyes. Okay, next picture, please. Okay, yeah. So friend took a picture. So the previous pictures were stellarium pictures. Here's an actual photograph showing the same thing. And again, you see Pegasus up here, stars of Andromeda, Cassiopeia. Galaxy really stands out here. It is sort of that way in dark sky. Next picture, please. Shows the annotated view. Same picture, just with some lines on it to help see Andromeda Galaxy. So it's just a different view. It's gives you sort of a realistic how it looks in the dark sky. Okay, next picture, please. So the Orion Nebula is worthwhile too. So probably we don't need to tell you what Orion looks like, but you'll see it easily when it's rising in the southeastern sky and let's say late autumn or November, December. So you see this section I've highlighted below the three belt stars. So next picture, please. Shows the Orion Nebula. So I wouldn't waste your time asking you to look at too many nebulas. Pretty boring. So if you want to look at them with a telescope, they're good challenge objects, but they're really just faint fuzz patches, which will cause you to get aggravated and say, why is he telling me to look at nebulas? These are pretty darn boring. However, the Orion Nebula is spectacular, so it's worthwhile to see in binoculars, especially in the dark sky. Bigger the telescope you can point at it, you'll see what you might find it to be a really nice sight. That's why I made this little list of things I wanted you to look at with your binoculars. Okay, next picture, please. Yeah, so I put in a few other activities in case you get really interested and want to look for things. And you could track planets and asteroids, star chart. Please. You could do science looking at variable stars or stars that change brightness if you're really dedicated to that. I should point out Galaxy View projects because anybody familiar with them? No hands up. It's worthwhile to point out they have all these categories on the top here. Social science, nature, medicine, literature. It's worthwhile to look at the website for all of them. These are all things that you get involved in with your computer and a whole bunch of other people, and to look at images and sort things out. So let me just explain it by telling you about the original Galaxy Zoo project years ago. That was when Hubble Space Telescope was getting many pictures of galaxies that nobody had time to sort through them, try to decide how they'd be classified. So they made up this Galaxy Zoo project where people would be at home on the computer, download pictures, sort them out, classify them by what they think they are. And to collectively, with thousands of people doing that around the world, they found it was a pretty darn useful way to classify these galaxies. Some really strange things were discovered. It could not have been discovered except for this citizen science project. By now, it's expanded to a huge number of other projects that you might find interesting. Look at that website that you're familiar with. I think I put a few on here. Next picture. Yeah, exoasteroids. So that means looking at asteroids, looking for images to pick out the moons around them. Comet catchers. I think I mentioned Rubin Observatory in a few more slides. And cloud spotting on Mars, looking at pictures of Mars to decide which spots are clouds, which are moving. Minor planet. I might have mentioned the importance of being familiar with as many asteroids as we need to find out about, so we can save our lives if we have to by averting some from colliding with Earth. Okay, next picture, please. So you might get involved with sketching. So these are some sketches that are made. Anyway, next picture, please. Imaging. So if you want to take pictures, you can. You can use cell phone, DSLR. New fangled gadget called the C-Star, which is automatic camera. Or you can spend a lot of money if you want to set up a telescope and computerized gadgetry and take really fancy pictures. I'll show you a few examples. Anyway, that's one activity you might do if you want to get involved. Next picture, please. So here are a few examples of astro imaging. So funny thing here is I asked one of the clubs if they wanted to contribute any pictures that they thought they might be useful to illustrate for you the Andromeda Galaxy and the Orion Nebula, just showing it earlier. I settled on the stellarium pictures because they're sort of realistic what you see. Here's what they sent me. So you won't see these sites with any telescope you have because these are long exposure, amazing pictures taken with a lot of filters, and you don't even recognize that one more or less is the Orion Nebula. might recognize if I tell you that the other two are gone in the galaxy, but you won't see that with any telescope. So they're just nice pictures. Call them pretty pictures, but people like to do that for one activity. So just one example. So next picture, please. So some interesting developments. I was going to put on a list of 10 interesting science developments. Nothing to do with being a naturalist, you can see, but I decided cut them out because there's just daily news full of interesting discoveries from James Webb Space Telescope and soon from the Vera Rubin Observatory. So there's this new opened up in Chile, or it's started to send some pictures already, but it's going to be scanning the sky constantly and discovering lots of comets, lots of asteroids, lots of other things. Going to be a whole flood of discoveries coming up. Anyway, that's not go here about it. Next picture, please. So you've probably heard of GWS by now. And huge amount of discoveries coming out of there, and things that we'll never see. And don't bother looking for this. You're not going to see this. This is just a spacecraft that's a machine. Picture of the actual telescope. Okay, next picture, please. So the last one I picked for interesting developments was exoplanets. Just because it's one thing I thought really one of the most interesting discoveries. That's because I don't know how many of you might remember 30 years ago, the first exoplanet was discovered. Anybody remember that? It was 1995. First planet was discovered around another star. I'm so dumb, I thought, wow, this is totally amazing that the world sees that there's another planet on a star far away. And everybody will put down their guns and missiles and stop shooting each other and look up and say, wow, this is amazing. Well, that was pretty dumb. Anyway, by now, many exoplanets are known, and here they are. Some are shown in scale, some are a bit bigger, some are a bit smaller than planets I showed you already, so they're potentially life habitable. And more are being discovered and classified every day. So it's a really amazing development in modern astronomy, in my opinion. Just one example of it. So I didn't want to go on that too much, but it's really amazing just in my personal. So next picture. So I'm finishing off with some details about light pollution. So you may already be familiar with the causes of light pollution being poor lighting, so that you have some good lights, you have some poor lights, and probably see good lighting along your street lights and along 401 that are shielded so they point downward so that viewed from the side or from far away, they don't shine light upward, like some still do in Toronto and elsewhere, where they can't afford to convert to better shield the lighting. But you can still see on some buildings, including in Coburg, poor lighting that shines that light out to the side. So it's a mix right now, but there is a general trend toward better improved lighting over the past 20 years, mostly due to this group called Dark Sky Organization. Anyway, that's just a quick picture. Next picture, please. Okay, so I just mentioned it briefly because you're probably familiar with causes of light pollution, but I think it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter because these guys, this company called Reflect Orbital, is planning to put up thousands of satellites, constellations that will reflect sunlight back to Earth. So they going to light up the night sky. I think it's far bigger disaster for nature than it is for astronomy. It'll be a mess for astronomy. So you think light pollution is bad? No. This is going to make it far worse. But it's a huge disaster, in my opinion, for nature. All those migrating birds, all those creatures that rely on darkness at night to do their lifestyles, it's going to be a disaster. So these guys have applied to the U.S. government for approval and seem to be going ahead. But it's even worse. So go to the next slide, please. This is in recent news. A week ago, the Sky and Telescope magazine had a weekly newsletter and website you can look at if you're interested. But this, let me just read it. In a move that's concerning astronomers, the FCC has proposed reducing environmental oversight of space-based operations. That means they're planning to say, forget about environmental concerns of satellites. They have thousands or millions of satellites planned to be launched. There are already huge constellations of satellites, Starlink being the most famous one, has launched thousands of satellites and constellations. And British company and Amazon are planning to also launch their own constellations of thousands of satellites. Nice guy. But this law, proposed law, is going to say, for the U.S. at least, don't bother wasting time worrying about environmental concerns of satellites. So next slide, please. No, I think go back a little bit. I think I said somewhere back when. No, I said somewhere. Enjoy night skies right now while you have your experience. Okay, forward please, one more. So I wanted to mention just before I finish, fake astronomy. So you see amazing news like this, courtesy of Facebook and Twitter, with really amazing pictures claiming that this is reality, but it's not. So how do you know? You don't really know. Next picture, please. There have always been artist depictions of things through illustrated. It's fine, but again, courtesy of Facebook, some people are promoting this as news, so you'll see fake news. Of course, we're now in the era of fake news, fake images, fake anything, and AI can fake anything better than humans can. So anything you see now is suspect. Pictures I showed you earlier, I'm proud to show you pictures that my friends have worked on because I know they're real pictures, they're real people that did them, but we're now in the era of fake anything. So the solution is simply use your eyes, enjoy looking at the night sky. It's a beautiful natural sky. So that's the solution. You don't have to get too distracted by fake images that are becoming available, becoming more widespread every day. Okay, next picture, please. Yeah, so I'm finishing off this final picture again. Why bother stargazing? To me, it's solitude and connecting with nature, and me, I find it to be a really huge boost for mental and spiritual health. That's just me personally. I find it really amazing to be standing outside under the stars for an hour or two. It just feels totally amazing. But you may also see meteors flash by. You may see aurora pop up. You may discover a nova. Say, what's that star doing there? That wasn't before. And you might find it to be really exciting to have discovered a nova. It's quite possible. So just amazing things can happen when you're standing under the stars for a couple of hours a week. So anyway, I think that was the last slide. Next one, please, should be, yeah, I'm putting a few sources in case you're interested. A book that I recommend, and a couple of magazines might be worthwhile if you're interested. So the problem with fake news is that upcoming news about eclipses, what do you do about that? So Observer's Handbook with your wireless not necessary kind of big cost around $30 and comes with membership, which costs more than $30. Anybody remember? No? Okay. Anyway, I'm not here to sell membership or books or anything. I'm just saying that one solution to the problem of fake news, and I've seen a lot of fake news about eclipses, recent eclipses, blood red moon eclipse, and being promoted as this spectacular eclipse to see of the moon. So they didn't tell you it's on the other side of the world, or far away, but actual good news, reliable news can be found in Observer's Handbook. Very to see. I have a blog that I produce for the Pickering Naturalists. It's called Pickering Astronomy. It's just one I put out monthly about what you can see with the naked eye, and there's a lot of good references on there. I pointed out Stellarium website. I use that. Any questions? Feel free to contact me. So that's the last picture. So I'll say thank you for your time. Any questions? I'll be glad to. Very good.
I have a question. Why does Saturn have such a pronounced ring and the other planets either have no rings or less pronounced rings?
Saturn's rings are interesting because they are young. They're going to be about 100 million years old. They're relatively newly created from particles smashed together. So Saturn's rings and the other guy's rings too are ice particles, mostly ice particles, all ground and smashed together different sizes. And they are relatively newly formed. And it's considered that in some number of million years they'll disappear. They're gradually spiraling into the planet, going to disappear and will eventually disappear. But it's just because of their age. We're looking at them right now, right at the stage of life where they're quite spectacular. And probably with the other guys, Uranus, especially Neptune, farther away from that cloud of debris, center of the solar system, so to speak, near Jupiter, where there's a lot of dust and ice particles that are formed those rings. So much less pronounced rings further you go toward greatness.
Questions?
Right, Matt?
I got a couple about comets. So you're saying the comets that we see in the sky, are they the size of grains of sand? Saying, or is that just like the comet kind of comet
No.
around the sea?
That was meteors.
Oh, stars.
Yeah, grain of sand causes comets generally a few kilometers. Generally, a few have been measured by spacecraft, and one spacecraft landed on a comet. Anybody remember that? European spacecraft. Anyway, they're roughly on the order of a few to 10 kilometers.
Right. So when we see, say, meteor in the sky, that's only grain size, reality?
Yes. So, and they're considered to be debris from hills.
Okay. Because that was kind of my next question was how there are meteor showers that appear yearly. How is that happening if they're all if ones you're seeing are crash landing for Earth? How does that happen?
Yeah. So picture this: each time a comet goes by, especially periodic comet belly, it leaves behind a cloud of debris from the hill. Where does that debris go? It hangs around in a cloud of debris. It's just sitting there in space, and the Earth intersects with it here at the same time. So every year at the same time, in case of Orion, just because they appear to originate from the constellation Berkshire Orion, the Earth intersects that cloud of debris same time every year around October. So it's a cloud of debris sitting there in space, going nowhere until the Earth crashes into it.
So eventually that'll stop happening.
Yeah, it'll eventually
Just
wear
disappears.
Yeah. Question over there?
What is your take on this Atlas comet? Is it natural or unnatural?
Comet Atlas. Short answer, I don't know, and I have no information to answer your question. So nobody does. So the reason it's wild speculation, thanks to Facebook. It's only the third object known that's from out of our solar system. It's on orbit. So there were two previous comet or objects that were whose orbits were measured and found to be from far outside of our solar system on such a weird orbit. They're just shooting past our solar system. So some speculators have speculated there could be what's the word, extraterrestrial origin or spacecraft. Let's call it an alien spacecraft. Sound like a good description for it? Yeah. So some people speculate it might be an alien spacecraft. Yes, maybe it is, but it's far enough away. Very few observations have been made of it, only of its position to get on orbit determination. So I think when it gets closer to the Earth, more observations can be made of it. It might show up as more than a speck of that more than a dot of light in the sky. That's what it would take to distinguish it. How can we decide right now whether it's a big chunk of rock with craters on it or a spaceship with windows on it? How can we decide? We can't. So no observations have been made from it. That's why I can't answer your question. That's why nobody can. However, thanks to Facebook, you see all sorts of speculation and fake images showing that it's extraterrestrial alien spacecraft. But anyway, that's my comments on it. Question behind you there?
Along with Comet Lemon, there are two other comet events coming this way in October and December. One is C2025R2, that's Comet Swan, and there's the second one was just mentioned, which is 3I Atlas. Now, will they be of a magnitude you see them with the naked eye?
So the answer to both is no. I think for the Comet Swan, it's the southern hemisphere. Best visibility in the southern hemisphere. Short answer, I haven't paid attention to it because it's not favorable. It's not really relevant to us. I haven't got excited about it because it's either too faint or it's in the southern hemisphere. So Comet Swan, haven't bothered. It's not really relevant. The other one, Atlas, it's too faint. It's faint and it's far away. It's not going to become a bright comet. It's just a passing object. So I may have briefly mentioned, maybe I didn't mention Catalina project, one of the Galaxy Zoo projects, where people are using telescopes to look for asteroids and things that are moving. So that's where the Comet Atlas then to, in fact, it's just moving dot of light. But it's not really relevant as a comet. To answer your question, okay. So it's not really spectacular.
I was watching a program on NOVA quite a few years ago. They were talking about constellation Andromeda, and that they were that Milky Way and Andromeda were moving towards each other, and eventually the Andromeda galaxy will fill the night sky, and then the two galaxies will connect. Is that still a theory, or is it?
It is. It is. It was considered for a long time that you would be colliding with the Andromeda galaxy moving towards us. But latest research in some papers indicates that there'll be a close miss, or many simulations have been done on the computer. Some show a collision, some show a near miss, some show that we'll pass right by and then loop around each other and then merge. It's due to the recent research or better updated simulations are due to getting better mass measurements on the dwarf galaxies. So dwarf galaxies of both Milky Way and Andromeda have been measured more carefully. They have a big impact. So our own Milky Way galaxy has some companion galaxies. Biggest one is known as a Large Magellan Cloud. There are about a dozen other dwarf galaxies as well. Andromeda galaxy, one of its companions is one name is a triangular galaxy. I didn't mention it here because it's sort of visible by eye. Somebody might read it's also visible to the unaided eye, and maybe it is with young eyes and dark sky. I didn't point it out. It's very close to Andromeda galaxy sky, but it's a companion to the Andromeda galaxy. By getting better measurements on those galaxies, the latest research indicates that there'll be either a near miss or just a quick close flyby rather than a head-on collision or head-on merger. So that's the update. Okay. Any other questions? Question here?
It seems like we're able to see the aurora so much more frequently recently than I can ever remember at any time in the rest of my life. Is that the case, or is it just that we have better phones that can see the light in the sky, or it's just better communication real time? I'm not full online, but
Okay, so the reason there's more aurora past couple of years. One of the reasons is we're near solar maximum, so maximum of solar activity. So sun varies on a cycle of about 11 years. And I totally decided to leave out the sun. A lot of interesting stuff about the sun. I decided to leave it out because there's so much interesting stuff that's not really very relevant to naturalists. I don't want anybody to try to see sunspots without proper solar filtration. Although aurora is one direct effect of the sun. So we're near solar maximum. So the solar storms and increased solar wind speeds that cause aurora are more frequent around the past couple of years. We've probably just passed the past couple of months the actual maximum solar cycle, but it should still be very active for the next couple. It's also two other effects. One is cell phones, as you mentioned. So we start to see a lot of spectacular pictures right now, including of an aurora that happened about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if anybody saw the one. Maybe? Yeah. I was outside at looking at the sky from a spot near Oshawa. Aurora popped up with Foxy. There's a light green glow in the sky. I saw pictures the next day of spectacular green and red vivid. And that's because of cell phone. I call them photographic auroras. The ones I took pictures of years ago, I showed some of mine, are what I see by eye. I think they're reasonable pictures, but now I see spectacularly vivid pictures that are really enhanced and really saturated colors. And that's I classify that, although people are taking them with their cell phones and think they're getting good pictures, I classify that under the fake picture, the fake information, because it's not totally realistic. It's not like an AI generated picture, which can be anything, but it is actually the aurora.
yeah, it just looks a lot more vivid on the photo than ever.
Yeah. So I call it photographic aurora. It's vastly more vivid than what you see by eye. The third effect was the Earth's magnetic field is weak. So the Earth's magnetic field, the pole is drifting, field is weak. We could possibly be heading, some scientists are fairly convinced that we're heading toward magnetic reversal. Which happens on the Earth, what have you heard of? And the recent, in the past 20 years, fast, quick movement of the shift of the poles. North celestial pole, north magnetic pole used to be north of Canada, is drifting across and towards Siberia fairly rapidly. So it's moving pretty quickly. So a lot of people are speculating that we're very close to a magnetic reversal and weakening of the Earth's magnetic field, which is allowing more of a solar impulse to cause aurora to have more of an impact and cause more aurora. I don't know. I don't really go along with that because I remember I've been watching auroras, seeing auroras for maybe 50 years probably. Seeing sometimes it's bright, sometimes it's just faint green glow, and I'm not really thoroughly convinced that it's more spectacular than it was decades ago. But it might be possible. It's possible. It's possible the weakening magnetic field has some. But anyway, those are three effects. For sure, the increase in solar activity cycle right now is a huge impact. For sure, photographic aurora effect, moving the cell phone, is having an effect on causing more spectacular pictures to appear. But the magnetic field, to me, those are my moments. Hey, anything else? Just over here.
We're talking about the power piece. Is that C star? Is that what you called it? Or
C star.
what is that?
So C star, if you look it up, Google it, whatever. C star S50 is a little gadget, but it's big. It's an automatic camera. So they're pretty popular in the past couple of years because people just plug it down, level it out, turn it on, and have their cell phone or tablet pull up with an app, and it pulls it directly, and they can get it running in about 10 minutes. Have it pointing at whatever object you want, say a Andromeda galaxy or Orion or anything you can't see by eye, and get circular efficient. So it's an automatic camera that's popular because it's doing a good job and costs somewhere around the order of $500 or $600. So it's relatively cheap for cameras and electronic stuff. So it's been around the past couple of years. Okay. Else? Questions back?
Asking on behalf of a shy younger member here, she is encouraged to raise diamonds. We're wondering, is that true?
So the answer is rumor is true. The longer answer is I don't know because I haven't been there to witness it. The other answer is I'm not totally sure why. It's because of the pressures in the atmosphere and the elements that are there. Carbon, especially, it's been found to, a wider ranging answer is that snow of various elements, including iron, considered to fall on Mercury, and Jupiter and Saturn, because the pressures in the atmosphere, the circulation in the atmosphere is understood, and the elements that can be brought up, precipitated out, and fall down. So it's a speculation that diamonds of carbon fall in Neptune. That's because of the pressures, the temperatures that are understood to be in the atmosphere. So it's very likely, yes. Longer answer, of course, I haven't seen it. Okay, anything else? Okay, reminder for any questions.
Okay, well, thank you.
So, well, it's a gift from the Naturalist Club.
Well, thank you.
It's all of our seniors and our so please enjoy it. And very fascinating presentation. It's very unique for us to have on Sean. So,
Glad to share it with everybody. Concept and interesting. Related to national. Okay,
thank you very much. Closing remarks. So our next meeting is November 7th, so it's not on, not in October. I guess that's to avoid Halloween. So,
Yep.
just a reminder that next meeting is in November. I guess it's going to be 2 meetings.
That's right.
For that one, so it's nice. The Great Lakes Coastal Cleanup, as we mentioned at the beginning, is tomorrow.
Sunday.
Sorry, Sunday, from 11 to 1. So if you're looking to clean up some of the beachfront at Coburg, please come out for that. Next outing, Nature Walk at Mary West Nature Reserve. That's on October 4th, and the Urban Tree Walk on October 5th. And please, membership renewals. Those are due by the end of the year, so start getting those in thoughts.
The emails for the 2 outings, the October 4th and 5th outing, they're going to go out this weekend. So if you're a member, you'll get those emails in your inbox this weekend with the details.
That's that. Thank you, guys.